The bracelet felt cold against my wrist, heavier than it should have been. I stared at the diamonds catching the lamplight in our bedroom, each stone winking like a tiny secret I wasn't supposed to know. My husband Gerald had clasped it around my wrist just an hour ago, his smile too wide, his hands trembling slightly as he fumbled with the catch. "Happy anniversary, baby," he'd said, kissing my cheek. "Nothing but the best for you." I should have been happy. 7 years of marriage, and this was the most expensive gift he'd ever given me. The box had said $100,000. Who spends that kind of money on a bracelet? We were comfortable, sure. Gerald's importing business did well, but not throw away $100,000 well. Something felt wrong about it from the moment he'd pulled out that velvet box. Now I sat on the edge of our bed, still in my blue anniversary dress, and that feeling had grown into something I couldn't ignore. The diamonds sparkled, beautiful and strange, and I couldn't shake the thought that they didn't belong to me. Maybe they never had. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I picked it up, expecting a text from my friend Rochelle asking how dinner went. Instead, an unknown number glowed on the screen. "Get rid of that bracelet. Tonight. Don't ask questions. Don't tell Gerald. If you value your freedom, throw it away now or you'll regret it." My hands went numb. I read the message 3 times, my heart beating faster with each word. This wasn't a joke. The tone was too urgent, too specific. Someone knew about the bracelet. Someone knew Gerald had given it to me tonight. I looked toward the bathroom where I could hear the shower running. Gerald was singing, something he only did when he was nervous or trying to convince himself everything was fine. The sound made my skin crawl. Who sent this? What? My fingers hovered over the screen, wanting to respond, to demand answers. But the message said don't ask questions. It said throw it away. It said I'd regret it. I thought about flushing it down the toilet, but the stones were too big. I could bury it in the trash, but what if Gerald noticed it missing? He'd given it to me with such ceremony, insisting I never take it off, telling me it was a symbol of his love and commitment. At the time I thought it was sweet. Now those words felt like a trap. The shower shut off. I had maybe 5 minutes before Gerald came back into the bedroom. 5 minutes to decide what to do with this thing on my wrist that suddenly felt like a shackle. My mind raced through options. I couldn't throw it away, not without raising suspicion. Gerald would ask where it was. He'd be hurt, angry even. But that text, that warning, it made my stomach twist into knots. Someone out there knew something I didn't, and they were trying to help me. Or set me up. I couldn't think straight. The bathroom door opened, and Gerald stepped out in his robe, his dark hair wet, his smile forced. "You still wearing it?" he asked, his eyes dropping immediately to my wrist. "Good. Don't take it off, okay? I want you to wear it all the time." "It's beautiful," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "But Gerald, this is too much. Where did you even get this kind of money?" His smile faltered. "Business has been good. Real good. I wanted to do something special for you. You deserve it, Naomi." He crossed the room and sat beside me, taking my hand in his. The bracelet caught the light again, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Fear? Guilt? I couldn't tell. "I'm going to take a bath," I said, pulling away gently. "Long day." He nodded, relief washing over his face. "Yeah, okay. I'll be in the living room." I locked the bathroom door behind me and sat on the closed toilet lid, staring at the bracelet. The text had said to get rid of it tonight. But how? And why? Then I remembered. Tomorrow morning, Gerald's sister Patricia was coming over for coffee. Patricia, who loved jewelry, who always admired anything shiny I wore. Patricia, who Gerald had been distant with lately, something about a business disagreement. A terrible idea formed in my mind, but it was the only one that made sense. If I gave the bracelet to Patricia, it would be gone from my possession. If something was wrong with it, if it was stolen or cursed or whatever reason that text existed, it wouldn't be my problem anymore. And Gerald couldn't blame me. I'd just be sharing with family, being generous. It was cruel. I knew that. But the fear crawling up my spine was stronger than my guilt. I took off the bracelet and hid it in my makeup bag, then ran the bath. When I came out 20 minutes later, Gerald was asleep on the couch, the TV playing some late-night show. I slipped into bed alone, the text message still glowing in my mind. The next morning, I woke before Gerald. I dressed quickly in a green blouse and jeans, putting the bracelet back on before he could notice it had been off. He kissed me goodbye, heading to the office early, and I waited for Patricia to arrive. She showed up at 9 sharp, carrying pastries and wearing a yellow sundress that made her brown skin glow. "Morning, sister," she said, hugging me at the door. "How was the anniversary?" "It was good," I said, leading her to the kitchen. "Actually, Gerald gave me something. Something really expensive." Her eyes lit up as I held out my wrist. Oh my God, Naomi. That's gorgeous. He really went all out. Too much, I said carefully. It makes me uncomfortable, actually. It's too flashy for me. But I know you love this kind of thing. Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly. What are you saying? I want you to have it. Naomi, I can't take that. It's from your husband. It's your anniversary gift. Please. I unclasped it and pressed it into her hand. I'd feel better if you had it. Really. It suits you more than me. She hesitated, turning the bracelet over in her palm. Are you sure? Gerald won't be upset. I'll handle Gerald, I said, my stomach churning. Take it. Wear it. Enjoy it. Patricia smiled slowly, then slipped it onto her wrist. If you're sure. Thank you, Naomi. This is incredible. We drank coffee and ate pastries, and I tried to ignore the guilt eating at me. I just passed off whatever danger that bracelet carried to my sister-in-law. But what choice did I have? The text had been clear. Get rid of it or regret it. Patricia left an hour later, the bracelet catching the sunlight as she waved goodbye from her car. I closed the door and leaned against it, relief and shame mixing in my chest. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. Smart move. But you're not safe yet. Watch the news tomorrow morning. And whatever you do, don't trust Gerald. I stared at the message until my vision blurred. What had I just done? What had Gerald gotten me into? And who was sending these texts? The next morning, I sat in front of the TV with my coffee, my hands shaking as I turned to the local news. The headline made my blood run cold. Local woman arrested in connection with jewelry theft ring. Patricia Chambers was taken into custody this morning after police discovered stolen property in her possession, including a diamond bracelet worth over $100,000. The coffee mug slipped from my hands, shattering on the floor. Patricia's face filled the screen, her eyes wide with confusion as officers led her away in handcuffs. The bracelet, my bracelet, the one Gerald had given me, glinted on her wrist in the footage. My phone rang. Gerald. Naomi, have you seen the news? What the hell happened? Why does Patricia have your bracelet? I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I'd set her up. I'd given her stolen property, and now she was in handcuffs because of me. Naomi, answer me. Why did you give Patricia that bracelet? The texts. The warnings. Get rid of it or you'll regret it. I'd gotten rid of it, but the regret was crushing me anyway. I need to go, I whispered. Naomi, wait. I hung up. Then I called the one person I trusted more than anyone. Rochelle, I said when she answered. Something's happened. Something bad. I need help. I'm on my way, she said without hesitation. I sat on the floor surrounded by broken ceramic and spilled coffee, staring at the TV as they replayed Patricia's arrest over and over. The bracelet sparkled in the footage, beautiful and terrible. What had Gerald done? And how deep did this go? Rochelle arrived 30 minutes later, letting herself in with the spare key I'd given her years ago. She found me still sitting on the floor, surrounded by the mess I hadn't bothered to clean up. Without a word, she grabbed the broom from the closet and swept up the broken mug while I stared at nothing. Okay, she said, sitting down across from me once the floor was clear. Start from the beginning. What happened? I told her everything. The anniversary dinner, the bracelet, the mysterious texts, my decision to give it to Patricia. With each word, Rochelle's expression grew darker. You got set up, she said flatly. Or Patricia did. Or both of you. I didn't know it was stolen, I said, my voice breaking. The text said to get rid of it. I thought if I gave it away I'd be safe. Safe from what? Rochelle leaned forward. Naomi, who would send you those texts? Who would know Gerald gave you that bracelet the same night he gave it to you? The question hung in the air between us. I'd been so focused on getting rid of the bracelet that I hadn't stopped to think about who might have sent those warnings. Someone close to Gerald. Someone who knew his plans. I need to talk to Patricia, I said, standing up. I need to explain. You need a lawyer, Rochelle corrected. And you need to stay away from Patricia until you have one. If the cops think you're involved in this theft ring, talking to her will only make things worse. Theft ring. The words made my head spin. Gerald had given me stolen property. Which meant he either stole it himself or knew someone who did. Either way, my husband was a criminal. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. I almost didn't open it, but Rochelle grabbed the phone from my hand and read the message out loud. Gerald's in deeper than you think. His business partner Simone runs the operation. The bracelet was supposed to go to a buyer in Miami. Gerald gave it to you by mistake. They've been scrambling ever since. Who is this? Rochelle demanded, typing quickly. How do you know this? 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Someone who got out before it was too late. Trust me. Check Gerald's office at home. Bottom drawer, false bottom. You'll find everything you need. The message ended there. No more text came through. Rochelle looked at me. Do you know where his home office is? Of course I do, I said. But he locks it when he's not there. Do you have a key? I did. Gerald had given me one years ago, back when he worked from home more often. I'd never used it, never had a reason to go through his things. The thought of doing it now made me feel sick, but what choice did I have? My sister-in-law was in jail because of me. Because of him. We went to Gerald's office, a small room at the back of the house he'd converted when we first moved in. I unlocked the door and we stepped inside. Everything looked normal. Desk, computer, filing cabinets, bookshelves. Nothing screamed criminal operation. Rochelle went straight to the desk, pulling open the bottom drawer. It was full of folders and old papers, nothing interesting. She knocked on the bottom, listening. Hollow, she said. She pulled everything out and felt around the edges until something clicked. The false bottom lifted, revealing a space beneath. Inside were USB drives, folders stuffed with papers, and a burner phone. My stomach dropped. This was real. All of it was real. Rochelle grabbed the folders and started flipping through them. Invoices, shipping manifests, names and addresses. Photos of jewelry, art pieces, watches. And in the margins, notes in Gerald's handwriting. Prices, percentages, delivery dates. He's been doing this for years, Rochelle whispered. Naomi, this isn't some one-time mistake. This is a full operation. I picked up the burner phone and turned it on. Text messages filled the screen, conversations between Gerald and someone named Simone. The messages were coded but not well. References to packages, deliveries, buyers. And one message from 3 days ago that made my blood run cold. The wife doesn't know anything. I'll give her the Miami piece tomorrow. Anniversary gift. She'll never suspect. The Miami piece. The bracelet. He'd planned this. He'd used our anniversary to cover up a smuggling operation. I scrolled further back. More messages between Gerald and Simone, but these were different. Flirtatious. Intimate. Plans to meet at hotels. Complaints about me about our marriage. He's having an affair, I said, my voice hollow. With Simone. His business partner. Rochelle took the phone from my hands and read through the messages. Her jaw tightened. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I should have cried. I should have screamed. But all I felt was cold rage settling into my bones. Gerald had betrayed me in every possible way. He put me in danger, framed his own sister, and cheated on me with the woman helping him run a smuggling ring. I need copies of everything, I said. Photos, documents, all of it. Rochelle pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. I turned on Gerald's computer, guessing his password on the second try. He'd used our wedding date. The irony wasn't lost on me. His email was full of encrypted messages, but his cloud storage was easier to access. More photos, more documents. Financial records showing accounts I'd never heard of, transfers of money that should have been in our joint savings. He'd been stealing from me too. From us. Taking marital assets and hiding them away, probably planning to disappear with Simone once they'd made enough money. We need to get out of here, Rochelle said. If Gerald comes home and finds us in here. Let him, I said. I'm not afraid of him anymore. But Rochelle was right. We needed to be smart about this. I downloaded everything I could onto a USB drive, then put Gerald's office back exactly as we'd found it. The false bottom clicked into place, the drawer closed. If he checked, he'd never know we'd been here. We left the office, locking the door behind us. My phone rang. Gerald again. Naomi, where are you? I've been trying to reach you all day. I've been home, I said, my voice steady. Dealing with the fact that your sister is in jail. That's not my fault, he said quickly. I don't know how she got that bracelet. Did you give it to her? The lie came so easily to him. Like he'd practiced it. Yes, I said. I gave it to her. It was too expensive and I thought she'd appreciate it more. Silence on the other end. Then, Naomi, you shouldn't have done that. That bracelet was for you. Why? I asked. Where did it come from, Gerald? How could we afford something like that? I told you business has been good. Look, I'm coming home. We need to talk. No, I said. I'm leaving. I'm staying with Rochelle for a few days. I need space. Naomi, please. I hung up and turned off my phone. Rochelle was already throwing clothes into a bag for me, moving through the bedroom like we were on a mission. We're going to fix this, she said. We're going to get Patricia out and we're going to make sure Gerald pays for what he's done. I believed her. I had to. Because the alternative was letting Gerald get away with destroying my life. We drove to Rochelle's apartment across town, the USB drive and burner phone hidden in my purse. Evidence. Proof. The truth about who my husband really was. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Patricia in jail, scared and confused, probably hating me for giving her that bracelet. I kept thinking about Gerald and Simone, laughing at me, using me as cover for their crimes. But mostly I thought about those text messages. Someone had tried to warn me. Someone had given me the information I needed to protect myself. Oh, and why? My temporary phone buzzed. I'd bought it at a convenience store on the way to Rochelle's, not wanting to turn my real phone back on in case Gerald tried to track me. Another unknown number. You did the right thing. Now go to the police. Tell them everything. They'll believe you if you have evidence. But move fast. Gerald knows something's wrong. I stared at the message. This person, whoever they were, had been helping me from the beginning. They'd warned me about the bracelet, told me where to find the evidence, and now they were pushing me to act. Who are you? I typed back. The response came quickly. Someone who made the same mistakes you almost did. Someone who got out before it was too late. Save yourself, Naomi. Don't let him drag you down with him. The messages stopped after that. No matter how many times I texted back, there was no response. I lay in Rochelle's guest bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow I'd go to the police. I'd show them everything. I'd tell them about Gerald and Simone and their smuggling ring. I'd get Patricia out of jail and clear her name. And then I'd make sure Gerald never hurt anyone else again. The police station smelled like coffee and floor cleaner. I sat in a small interview room with Rochelle beside me and a detective across the table. Detective Morrison was a tired-looking woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude. Mrs. Chambers, she said, opening a notebook, you said you have information about the stolen bracelet found in Patricia Chambers's possession. I placed the USB drive on the table between us. My husband gave me that bracelet 3 nights ago. The same night, I received anonymous texts warning me to get rid of it. I gave it to Patricia the next morning. I didn't know it was stolen. But after she was arrested, I received more texts telling me to check my husband's office. Detective Morrison picked up the USB drive. And what's on here? Evidence. Documents showing a smuggling operation run by my husband Gerald and his business partner Simone Reeves. Financial records, shipping manifests, correspondence about stolen property. Everything you need to prove Patricia is innocent and my husband is guilty. The detective inserted the USB into her laptop and started scrolling through files. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her shoulders tense as she read. Mrs. Chambers, this is serious. If what you're saying is true, your husband and Ms. Reeves are facing federal charges. Are you prepared for what that means? Yes, I said without hesitation. I want him prosecuted. I want Patricia released. And I want a divorce. Detective Morrison nodded slowly. I'll need to verify this information, but from what I'm seeing here, you've given us enough to at least question your husband. Do you feel safe at home? I'm staying with a friend, I said, glancing at Rochelle. I haven't spoken to Gerald since yesterday. Good. Keep it that way. We'll be in touch. We left the station and I felt lighter than I had in days. The truth was out. The police had the evidence. Gerald couldn't hide anymore. But the relief was short-lived. My temporary phone rang an hour later. A number I didn't recognize, but not the same unknown number that had been texting me. Mrs. Chambers, this is attorney Jennifer Wu. Detective Morrison gave me your contact information. I specialize in cases involving financial fraud and asset recovery. Given your situation, I think we should talk. I met Jennifer Wu at her office that afternoon. She was sharp, professional, and direct. After reviewing copies of the evidence I'd given the police, she leaned back in her chair and steepled her fingers. Your husband has been embezzling marital assets for at least 3 years, she said. The accounts I'm seeing here should legally be half yours, but he's hidden them. We can recover that money, but it's going to take time and legal action. How much are we talking about? I asked. Conservatively? Around $2 million. The number hit me like a physical blow. $2 million. Money that should have been ours, that should have secured our future. Money he'd stolen and hidden away with his mistress. I want every penny back, I said. And I want him to pay for what he did to Patricia. Jennifer nodded. We'll start divorce proceedings immediately. Given the criminal investigation, we can request an emergency freeze on all his accounts. He won't be able to move any money or sell any assets without court approval. Do it, I said. Over the next week, my life became a blur of legal meetings and police interviews. Detective Morrison confirmed that the evidence I'd provided was legitimate. Gerald and Simone were brought in for questioning. Their smuggling ring had been operating for 5 years, moving stolen jewelry and art pieces through Gerald's importing business as cover. Patricia was released on bail, all charges dropped. She came to Rochelle's apartment the day she got out, her eyes red from crying. "Naomi, I'm so sorry," she said. "I had no idea. When Gerald gave you that bracelet, I should have known something was wrong." "This isn't your fault," I said, hugging her. "Gerald set both of us up. He used me to hide his crimes, and he used you as a scapegoat when things went wrong." Patricia pulled back, wiping her eyes. "The police told me about Simone. About the affair. I'm so sorry." "Don't be," I said. "I'm better off knowing the truth." And I was. The anger had burned through me, leaving behind something harder and stronger. Determination. I wasn't going to let Gerald destroy me. I was going to rebuild my life without him. Jennifer moved fast on the divorce. Gerald tried to contest it, claiming we could work things out, that the whole thing was a misunderstanding. But the evidence didn't lie. His accounts were frozen, his assets seized as part of the criminal investigation. He called me from jail after his arrest. I didn't answer. He left voicemails, desperate and pleading. I deleted them without listening. The anonymous text stopped after I went to the police. Whoever had been helping me was satisfied that I'd taken action. I never found out who they were, but I was grateful. They'd saved me from becoming collateral damage in Gerald's mess. Rochelle sat with me every night, helping me process everything. We'd been friends since college, and she'd always been the steady one, the practical one. Now she was my lifeline. "You're going to get through this," she said one evening over Chinese takeout. "You're stronger than you think." "I don't feel strong," I admitted. "I feel like my whole life was a lie." "It wasn't," Rochelle said firmly. "Gerald lied. But your feelings were real. Your work was real. You were real. He doesn't get to take that away from you." She was right. I'd spent 7 years building a life with Gerald, but that life had been built on his lies, not mine. I still had myself. I still had my friends, my integrity, my future. I started looking into going back to school. I dropped out of my business degree program when Gerald and I got married, and he'd convinced me I didn't need it. Now I saw it for what it was, another way to control me, to make me dependent on him. Patricia visited often. We grew closer through the shared trauma of what Gerald had done. She told me about the arguments she'd had with him before the arrest, how he'd been distant and secretive. She'd suspected something was wrong but never imagined it was this bad. "He always had an excuse," she said. "Always a reason why he couldn't make family dinners or why he was traveling so much. I should have pushed harder." "You couldn't have known," I said. "He fooled all of us." The preliminary hearing for Gerald's criminal case was set for 6 weeks out. Jennifer assured me that the evidence was solid. He'd likely take a plea deal to avoid trial. Simone had already started cooperating with prosecutors, trying to reduce her sentence by testifying against him. I didn't care about their legal strategies. I just wanted it over. One afternoon, I received a package at Rochelle's apartment. Inside was a burner phone, the same one I'd found in Gerald's office. But this time it had a note attached. "You're doing great. Keep going. Don't let him manipulate you. And remember, you're not alone." The handwriting was neat, feminine. I turned the note over, looking for more clues, but there was nothing. Rochelle read it over my shoulder. "Your mysterious helper strikes again." "I wish I knew who it was," I said. "I want to thank them." "Maybe that's the point," Rochelle said. "Maybe they don't want thanks. They just want you to succeed." I kept the note in my wallet, a reminder that someone out there believed in me, even when I struggled to believe in myself. Jennifer called a few days later with an update. Gerald's attorney reached out. "They want to settle the divorce out of court. He's offering you 60% of the marital assets in exchange for your cooperation in reducing his criminal sentence." "Absolutely not," I said. "I don't care if it takes years. I'm not helping him get a lighter sentence." "Good," Jennifer said. "Because I was going to advise you to refuse anyway. We can get more than 60%, especially given the fraud." The legal battle stretched on, but I didn't mind. Every day that passed, I felt more like myself. I enrolled in online classes to finish my degree. I started volunteering at a women's shelter, helping others who'd been through similar situations. I began to see a future beyond Gerald, beyond the wreckage of our marriage. Patricia got a job at an art gallery downtown. She was rebuilding her life too, slowly regaining the confidence Gerald's betrayal had shattered. We met for coffee every week, two women trying to put the pieces back together. "Do you ever miss him?" she asked me one afternoon. I thought about it honestly. I miss who I thought he was. But that person never existed. So no, I don't miss Gerald. I miss the life I thought we had. "Me too," Patricia said quietly. "He was my brother, but I don't know if I can forgive him." "You don't have to," I said. "Forgiveness is for you, not him. If you're not ready, that's okay." She smiled, grateful. "Thank you for not blaming me." "Why would I? You're a victim in this too." The preliminary hearing came and went. Gerald pled guilty to avoid trial. Simone received a longer sentence for running the operation. Gerald got 8 years with possibility of parole after 5. When Jennifer told me, I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger. Just a quiet sense of closure. "The divorce will be finalized next month," she said. "You'll receive 75% of the marital assets, plus spousal support until you complete your degree. The house is yours if you want it." I thought about the house, the place where I'd lived with Gerald for 7 years. Every room held memories I didn't want anymore. "Sell it," I said. "I want to start over somewhere new." Jennifer nodded. "I'll start the paperwork." That night, I sat with Rochelle on her balcony watching the city lights flicker below. My life had imploded, but I was still here. Still standing. Still moving forward. "I'm proud of you," Rochelle said. "I couldn't have done this without you," I replied. "Yes, you could have," she said. "But I'm glad you didn't have to." I smiled, the first real smile in months. The road ahead was long, but I was ready for it. I was ready to reclaim my life, to build something new, to become the person I was always meant to be. Gerald had tried to destroy me. But all he'd done was set me free. The full scope of Gerald and Simone's operation emerged slowly, like a photograph developing in solution. Detective Morrison called me in for a follow-up interview 2 weeks after Gerald's guilty plea. She sat across from me in the same interview room where this had all begun, but this time her expression was almost sympathetic. "Mrs. Chambers, we've been tracking the network your husband was involved with. It's bigger than we initially thought. The FBI is taking over the case." My stomach tightened. The FBI? The smuggling ring crosses state lines, potentially international borders. We're talking about millions of dollars in stolen property moved over the past 5 years. Your husband and Ms. Reeves were mid-level operators, but they were part of a larger organization. I processed this information slowly. Gerald hadn't just been stealing jewelry and art pieces. He'd been part of something massive, something organized and dangerous. "Are you saying I'm still in danger?" I asked. "No," Detective Morrison said quickly. "The investigation is focused on the suppliers and buyers, not the people caught in the middle. You and Patricia are considered witnesses, not suspects. But we may need you to testify if the case goes to trial." "I'll do whatever you need," I said. "As long as it puts these people away." She smiled slightly. "Your cooperation has been invaluable. The evidence you provided broke the case open. We've already made 3 additional arrests based on the documents from your husband's office." After the interview, I sat in my car in the parking lot, trying to steady my breathing. 3 more arrests. How many people had Gerald involved in his crimes? How many lives had he touched, ruined, destroyed? My phone buzzed. "Jennifer Wu. Naomi, we need to talk. Gerald's attorney is trying to use the expanded investigation as leverage. They're claiming he was coerced into the smuggling ring, that he's a victim too." I laughed bitterly. "That's ridiculous. The evidence shows he was a willing participant." "I know. But they're going to try anyway. They're asking for a reduced sentence in exchange for his testimony against the higher-ups in the organization." "Let them try," I said. "I'm not backing down." Jennifer paused. "There's something else. Simone's attorney reached out. She wants to meet with you." The request startled me. "Why?" She didn't say. But my gut tells me she's looking for sympathy, maybe hoping you'll speak on her behalf at sentencing. "Not a chance," I said flatly. That's what I told her attorney. "But the offer's there if you change your mind." I wouldn't. Simone had been sleeping with my husband, running a criminal operation and destroying lives. I had no sympathy for her. But curiosity gnawed at me. What could she possibly want to say? What could she tell me that would make any of this make sense? Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. Jennifer set it up at the detention center where Simone was being held pending sentencing. I brought Rochelle for support, though she waited in the lobby while I went into the visitation room. Simone sat on the other side of the plexiglass partition, looking smaller than I'd imagined. I'd never met her before, Never even seen a photo. She was beautiful in a sharp, calculated way. Dark hair pulled back severely, high cheekbones, eyes that assessed me with cold intelligence. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice soft. I didn't respond. I just waited. She seemed uncomfortable with my silence. "Good. I wanted to apologize," she said finally. "For the affair, for dragging you into this mess. You didn't deserve any of it." "You're right," I said. "I didn't." Simone looked down at her hands. "Gerald told me your marriage was over. That you were just going through the motions, that he was planning to leave you anyway." "He lied," I said. "To both of us." She nodded slowly. "I know that now. He lied about a lot of things. About how involved I'd get, about how safe the operation was. He said we'd make enough money to disappear together, start over somewhere new. And you believed him." "I loved him," Simone said, her voice cracking. "Or I thought I did. Looking back, I don't know what was real and what was manipulation. I felt a flicker of something that might have been pity, but I pushed it down. Simone had made her choices just like Gerald had. She didn't get to claim victim status now." "Why did you want to see me?" I asked. "To tell you that the texts you received, the ones warning you about the bracelet, they came from me." The room seemed to tilt. I stared at her through the plexiglass, trying to process what she'd just said. "You sent those messages?" "Yes. Gerald was supposed to deliver that bracelet to a buyer in Miami. When he told me he'd given it to you instead, I panicked. I knew what would happen if the buyer found out, if the police traced it back. I tried to protect you." "By telling me to throw it away?" I said, anger rising in my voice. "You put that burden on me instead of just telling the truth." "I was scared," Simone said. "I thought if you got rid of it quickly, nobody would get hurt. I didn't expect you to give it to Patricia. That was never supposed to happen." "But it did happen," I said. "Because of the situation you and Gerald created." Simone's eyes filled with tears. "I know. I'm so sorry. I've been carrying this guilt every day since Patricia was arrested. When I saw you going to the police, giving them the evidence, I knew you were stronger than I ever was. You did what I couldn't do." "Get out," I said flatly. "What?" "Get out of this life. You said you helped me because I was doing what you couldn't. So you could have left any time. You could have gone to the police yourself. But you didn't. You stayed with Gerald, kept running the operation, kept putting people at risk. Don't try to make yourself the hero of this story." Simone wiped her eyes. "You're right. I'm not the hero. I just wanted you to know that I tried in my own cowardly way to help." I stood up. "I hope the judge gives you the maximum sentence. Not because I hate you, but because you need to understand that actions have consequences. Gerald destroyed my life, but you helped him do it. Own that." I left without looking back. Rochelle met me in the lobby, reading my expression immediately. "That bad?" "Worse," I said. "Let's go." In the car I told her everything. About Simone sending the texts, about her claims of love and manipulation, about her weak attempt at redemption. "She's trying to ease her conscience," Rochelle said. "Don't let her." "I won't," I said. "But at least now I know who was helping me. Even if her reasons were selfish." The divorce finalized 3 weeks later. I stood in Jennifer's office, signing the papers that officially ended my marriage to Gerald. My hand didn't shake. I felt nothing but relief. "You're free," Jennifer said, handing me copies of the documents. "Congratulations." Free. The word felt strange and wonderful at the same time. The house sold quickly. I used part of the money to pay off my student loans and put the rest into savings. I found a small apartment downtown, close to the university where I was finishing my degree. It was bright, modern, and completely mine. Patricia helped me move in along with Rochelle. We spent the day unpacking boxes and arranging furniture, laughing as we argued about where things should go. It felt normal. It felt right. "To new beginnings," Patricia said that evening, raising a glass of wine. "To new beginnings," Rochelle and I echoed. I looked around my new apartment, at the blank walls waiting for art, at the empty shelves waiting for books, at the future waiting to be built. Gerald had tried to trap me in his lies, but I'd broken free. I'd taken back my life, my dignity, my power. The FBI agent assigned to the larger investigation called a few days later. They wanted me to testify at trial against some of the higher-level operators in the smuggling ring. I agreed without hesitation. "You're very brave, Mrs. Chambers," the agent said. "I'm not brave," I corrected. "I'm just done being quiet." Gerald sent letters from prison. I burned them without reading them. He tried to call, but I blocked his number. He had nothing left to say that I wanted to hear. Simone was sentenced to 12 years. Gerald's sentence remained at 8. The higher-ups in the organization received longer sentences, some up to 20 years. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was something. I testified at trial in the fall. The defense attorneys tried to shake me, tried to paint me as a scorned wife seeking revenge. But the evidence spoke for itself. The jury convicted all 5 defendants in less than 3 hours. Walking out of the courthouse that day, I felt lighter than I had in months. The legal battles were finally over. The truth had come out. Gerald's lies had been exposed, and everyone involved was paying the price. Patricia waited for me on the courthouse steps. "How do you feel?" "Like I can finally breathe," I said. We walked to a nearby cafe and ordered coffee. The afternoon sun was warm, the streets busy with people going about their lives. Normal, everyday people who didn't know what I'd been through, what I'd survived. "I start my new job next week," Patricia said. "Gallery manager. Full-time with benefits." "That's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for her. "You deserve it." "So do you," she said. "Have you thought about what you want to do after graduation?" I had. During the long nights of legal battles and testimony prep, I'd thought a lot about my future. About the person I wanted to become. "I want to help people," I said. "Women who've been through what we've been through. Financial abuse, manipulation, crime by association. There are resources but not enough. I want to change that." Patricia smiled. "You will. I know you will." We finished our coffee and walked back toward my apartment. The city felt different now, full of possibility instead of danger. I'd walked through fire and come out stronger on the other side. That night, alone in my apartment, I opened my laptop and started writing. I wrote about the bracelet, the texts, the discovery of Gerald's crimes. I wrote about the betrayal, the fear, the anger. And I wrote about the strength I'd found, the friendships that had sustained me, the future I was building. It wasn't a book or a blog post. It was just for me, a way to process everything that had happened. But as I typed, I realized this story might help someone else someday. Someone who felt trapped, who didn't know how to escape, who needed to know they could survive. I saved the document and closed my laptop. Tomorrow I had classes. Next week I had finals. In a few months, I'd graduate with my business degree. And then the real work would begin. Gerald was in prison. Simone was in prison. The smuggling ring was broken. And I was free. Not free from the memories or the pain, but free from the lies. Free to choose my own path, make my own decisions, build my own life. And that was everything. The divorce proceedings had been finalized, but the financial untangling was far from over. Jennifer Wu sat across from me in her office, a stack of documents between us that seemed to grow every time I visited. "Gerald's legal team is fighting the asset division," she said, flipping through papers. "They're claiming that some of the accounts we identified are business assets, not marital property." "But you said we could prove they were marital assets," I said, frustration creeping into my voice. "We can and we will. But it means more hearings, more depositions, more time. They're dragging this out hoping you'll accept a smaller settlement just to be done with it." I leaned back in my chair, exhausted. The past few months had been a constant battle, and every time I thought we were making progress, Gerald's attorneys found a new way to complicate things. "I'm not backing down," I said. "Every dollar he hid is a dollar he stole from our marriage. I want it back." Jennifer smiled approvingly. "Good. Because I have a strategy. We're going to request a forensic accounting audit. It will cost money up front, but it will expose every account, every transfer, every penny he's tried to hide." "Do it," I said without hesitation. The forensic accountant Jennifer hired was a meticulous woman named Dr. Rita Okafor. She spent 3 weeks combing through Gerald's financial records, tracking money movements that went back nearly a decade. When she presented her findings, even Jennifer looked shocked. "He's been siphoning money since before you were married," Dr. Okafor said, showing us a timeline on her laptop. "Small amounts at first, then larger sums after the smuggling operation began. In total, we're looking at approximately $3.2 million in hidden assets." The number staggered me. $3 million. Money that should have secured our future, paid for a family, built a life. Instead, Gerald had stolen it, hidden it, planned to use it for his escape with Simone. "Can we recover it all?" I asked. "Most of it," Dr. Okafor said. "Some was spent on the smuggling operation, some on hotels and gifts for his mistress. But the bulk is still sitting in offshore accounts. With court orders, we can access it." The next hearing was brutal. Gerald's attorney, a slick man named Richard Barnes, tried to discredit Dr. Okafor's findings. He claimed the accounts were for business purposes, that Gerald had the right to manage business funds separately. Jennifer demolished his arguments one by one. She presented evidence showing transfers made on personal occasions like our anniversary, Valentine's Day, Christmas. She showed receipts for luxury items purchased for Simone. She demonstrated how Gerald had deliberately hidden these accounts from me during our marriage. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Catherine Harrison, listened carefully. When both sides finished presenting, she removed her glasses and looked directly at Gerald, who sat at the defense table looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. "Mr. Chambers," Judge Harrison said, her voice cutting through the courtroom. "The evidence presented here shows a deliberate pattern of financial deception spanning multiple years. You hid marital assets from your wife, used those assets for criminal enterprise, and are now attempting to claim they were legitimate business expenses. I find this behavior reprehensible." She turned to Jennifer. "I'm granting Mrs. Chambers's motion for full asset recovery. Mr. Chambers will pay the costs of the forensic audit, and all hidden assets will be divided according to the original divorce decree, 75% to Mrs. Chambers, 25% to Mr. Chambers." Richard Barnes stood. "Your Honor, we'd like to appeal." "Denied," Judge Harrison said sharply. "Mr. Chambers has exhausted my patience and this court's resources. The ruling stands. This matter is closed." I sat in the courtroom barely believing what I'd just heard. It was over. The financial battle was finally over. Outside, Jennifer hugged me. "You did it. You got everything you deserved." "We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have won without you." But Gerald wasn't done fighting. Even from prison, he continued to make my life difficult. He filed motions to reduce his spousal support payments, claiming he had no income. He contested the payment schedule for the asset transfer, trying to delay as long as possible. Each motion required a response. Each response required legal fees and court appearances. Jennifer handled most of it, but I had to be present for depositions and hearings. Every time I saw Gerald across a courtroom, I felt the anger flare up again. He'd lost weight in prison. His expensive suits were gone, replaced by a standard orange jumpsuit for court appearances. He looked older, defeated. But his eyes still held that calculating look, that belief that he could talk his way out of anything. During one particularly contentious hearing about the payment schedule, Gerald's attorney requested that I be allowed to address the court directly. Jennifer advised against it, but I agreed. Judge Harrison nodded. "Mrs. Chambers, you may speak." I stood, my hands steady on the table in front of me. "Your Honor, my ex-husband is trying to delay these payments because he believes I'll eventually give up. He thinks if he makes this process painful enough, expensive enough, exhausting enough, I'll accept less than I'm owed just to make it stop." I looked at Gerald then, holding his gaze. "But I won't. Every dollar he hid represents a betrayal of our marriage. Every account he opened in secret represents a lie he told me. Every transfer he made to his mistress represents a future he stole from us. I will pursue this case until every penny is recovered, no matter how long it takes." I sat down. The courtroom was silent. Judge Harrison turned to Gerald's attorney. "Your client will adhere to the payment schedule as ordered. If he continues to file frivolous motions to delay, I will hold him in contempt of court. Do you understand?" Richard Barnes nodded stiffly. "Yes, Your Honor." The first payment arrived 2 weeks later. A direct deposit into my account, $425,000. Part of the recovered assets, the first installment of what I was owed. I stared at the number on my bank statement. This was real. I'd won. Patricia came over that evening and we celebrated quietly with takeout and sparkling cider. She'd been following the legal battles closely, offering support whenever I needed it. "You're amazing," she said, raising her glass. "Seriously, Naomi. What you've done standing up to Gerald like this, it's incredible." "I'm just tired," I admitted. "Tired of fighting, tired of court, tired of everything being about him." "Then stop," Patricia said gently. "You've won the big battles. Let Jennifer handle the rest. Focus on your life, your future." She was right. I'd been so consumed with the legal fights that I'd forgotten to actually live. I was finishing my degree, yes, but I wasn't enjoying it. I was winning in court, but I wasn't celebrating my victories. I was surviving, but I wasn't thriving. That night, I made a decision. No more court appearances unless absolutely necessary. No more obsessing over Gerald's next move. I'd hired Jennifer to handle the legal details, and I needed to trust her to do her job while I focused on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into my final semester of classes. Business management, accounting, organizational behavior. The coursework was challenging but rewarding. I started to remember why I'd wanted this degree in the first place, before Gerald had convinced me I didn't need it. My professors were impressed with my work ethic and maturity. One of them, Dr. Angela Foster, pulled me aside after class one day. "Naomi, have you thought about graduate school? With your experience and your academic performance, you'd be an excellent candidate for an MBA program." The suggestion startled me. I'd been so focused on finishing my undergraduate degree that I hadn't thought beyond it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I'm not sure I can afford it. There are scholarships, grants, assistantships. And with your story, your resilience, I think you'd be a compelling applicant." Think about it. I did think about it. An MBA would open doors I'd never considered. It would give me credentials to start my own business, to consult, to teach. It would be another step toward independence, toward building a life entirely my own. Jennifer called in early December with good news. "The asset transfer is complete. All remaining funds have been deposited into your accounts. Gerald has no more legal grounds to contest anything." "It's really over?" I asked. "It's really over," she confirmed. "You're officially free of him, financially and legally. Congratulations, Naomi." I hung up and sat in my apartment, letting the news sink in. Free. Financially secure. Ready to move forward. That evening, I applied to 3 MBA programs. I wrote my personal statement carefully, explaining my journey from housewife to business student, from victim to survivor. I didn't know if I'd get accepted, but I knew I had to try. Gerald sent another letter from prison. This time I opened it. I don't know why, maybe curiosity, maybe a need for closure. The letter was rambling, full of apologies and excuses. He claimed he'd been pressured into the smuggling ring, that Simone had manipulated him, that he'd never meant to hurt me. He said he still loved me, that he hoped someday I could forgive him. I read it twice, then tore it into pieces and threw it away. Gerald could spend the rest of his sentence writing letters, but I wouldn't read another one. His words meant nothing anymore. Patricia got promoted at the gallery. She was excelling in her new role, organizing exhibitions and working with artists. She'd found her calling just as I was finding mine. "We've both come so far," she said over dinner one night. "A year ago, I never would have imagined we'd be here. A year ago, I was wearing a stolen bracelet and believing my husband loved me," I said. "So yeah, we've come far." We laughed, the kind of laughter that comes from surviving something terrible and coming out stronger. We'd been through hell together, and we'd made it to the other side. As winter settled in, I finalized my course schedule for my last semester. In May, I'd graduate with honors. After that, hopefully graduate school. And after that, the world. Gerald's legal team made one final attempt to reduce his payments, filing a motion claiming financial hardship. Jennifer shut it down so efficiently that the judge didn't even hold a hearing. The motion was denied in writing, with a warning that any further frivolous filings would result in sanctions against Gerald's attorney. "He's done," Jennifer said when she called to tell me. "He has no more moves to make. You've won completely." I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I just felt tired. The legal battles had consumed so much energy, so much time. I was glad they were over, but mostly I was ready to move on. New Year's Eve came and Rochelle threw a small party at her apartment. Patricia came along with a few other friends. We rang in the new year with champagne and hope, toasting to better things ahead. At midnight, as everyone hugged and celebrated, I stood on Rochelle's balcony looking out at the city. Somewhere out there, Gerald was in prison. Somewhere, Simone was too. And here I was, free and alive and ready for whatever came next. The legal battles were over. Gerald had lost everything he tried to steal from me. And I had won not just money or assets, but something far more valuable. I won myself back. January brought snow and a fresh start. I walked across campus bundled in a red coat, my breath forming clouds in the cold air. My final semester had begun, and with it came a strange sense of calm. The legal battles were behind me. Gerald was just a memory now, locked away where he couldn't hurt anyone else. But something was missing. I had my freedom, my financial security, my education. Yet I felt unmoored, like I was floating without purpose or direction. Rochelle noticed during our weekly coffee date. "You seem distracted," she said, studying my face. "What's going on?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Everything I fought for, I have. The divorce is final, the money's recovered, I'm graduating in a few months. I should be happy. But you're not." "I'm not unhappy," I corrected. "I'm just lost. I spent so long fighting Gerald that now that it's over, I don't know what I'm supposed to do." Rochelle set down her cup. "You find your purpose. You figure out what you want from life, not what you're running from or fighting against. You decide who Naomi is when she's not defined by Gerald's betrayal. Her words hit hard because they were true. I'd spent months being the wronged wife, the fierce survivor, the woman who wouldn't back down. But who was I when I wasn't fighting? That night, I sat at my computer and opened a blank document. I started typing, not sure what I was writing or why. The words poured out. My story from the night Gerald gave me the bracelet to the final court victory. Every detail, every emotion, every lesson learned. I wrote for hours, stopping only when my hands cramped. When I finally read back what I'd written, I was surprised. It wasn't just a personal journal entry. It was something more. A cautionary tale, yes, but also a guide. A map for other women who might find themselves in similar situations. The next morning, I emailed Dr. Angela Foster, my business professor. Would you have time to read something I wrote? I'd appreciate your feedback. She responded within an hour. Come by my office this afternoon. Dr. Foster read my draft while I sat nervously across from her. When she finished, she looked up with an expression I couldn't quite read. This is powerful, Naomi. Have you thought about what you want to do with it? I don't know, I said honestly. I just needed to get it out. You should publish it. Not in a book, not yet. But a blog maybe. Or submit it as an essay to publications that focus on financial literacy and domestic issues. Your story could help people. The idea terrified and excited me in equal measure. You really think people would want to read this? I know they would, Dr. Foster said firmly. Financial abuse is more common than most people realize. Partners who hide money, control assets, use finances as a tool for manipulation. Your story puts a face on it, makes it real. And more importantly, it shows how to fight back and win. I left her office with my mind racing. Could I really share my story with strangers? Could I put myself out there, vulnerable and exposed, hoping it might help someone else? That weekend I created a blog. Simple, clean design. I titled it The Bracelet's Truth, and posted my first entry, the full story of what had happened, edited for clarity but emotionally honest. I didn't tell anyone except Rochelle. Are you sure about this? She asked. Once it's online, you can't take it back. I'm sure, I said. If my story helps even one person recognize the warning signs or find the courage to leave, it's worth it. The blog sat untouched for 2 days. Then Dr. Foster shared it with her network. Then someone shared it on social media. Then it started spreading. Within a week, I had comments from women around the country. They shared their own stories of financial abuse, of hidden accounts and secret spending, of partners who controlled every penny. They thanked me for speaking up, for showing them they weren't alone. One comment in particular made me cry. I've been married for 12 years. My husband handles all the money. I don't even have access to our bank accounts. Reading your story made me realize this isn't normal. This is abuse. Thank you for opening my eyes. I responded to every comment, offering resources and encouragement. Slowly, the blog became more than just my story. It became a community of women supporting each other, sharing information, building each other up. Patricia read the blog and called me immediately. Naomi, this is incredible. You're helping so many people. I just wrote about what happened, I said, still processing the response. You did more than that. You gave people permission to acknowledge their own situations. That's powerful. Encouraged by the response, I started posting more regularly. Tips for recognizing financial abuse. Resources for women planning to leave controlling relationships. Interviews with attorneys and financial advisors who specialized in these cases. Jennifer Wu agreed to write a guest post about protecting yourself legally during divorce. Dr. Okafor contributed an article about hiding assets and how to find them. The blog grew from my personal story into a comprehensive resource. A local newspaper reached out, wanting to interview me for a feature on financial literacy. I agreed, nervous but determined. The article ran on the front page of the lifestyle section, with the headline From Victim to Advocate: One Woman's Fight Against Financial Abuse. The response was overwhelming. My inbox filled with messages from women and some men sharing their stories. Organizations focused on domestic violence reached out, asking if I'd be willing to speak at events or workshops. You found your voice, Rochelle said one evening as we scrolled through the latest blog comments. This is what you were looking for. This is your purpose. She was right. For the first time since the divorce, I felt like I was moving forward instead of just recovering from the past. I was building something meaningful, using my pain to help others avoid similar suffering. A local community center invited me to lead a financial literacy workshop for women. I spent a week preparing, nervous about speaking in front of a group. But when the day came, 30 women showed up, ready to learn how to protect themselves financially. I taught them about separate accounts, credit monitoring, asset documentation. I explained the warning signs of financial abuse and the legal options available. And I shared my story, not as a victim but as someone who'd fought back and won. The evaluations afterward were glowing. "This workshop should be mandatory for all women," one attendee wrote. "I learned things I never knew I needed to know." The community center asked me to lead monthly workshops. I agreed, adding it to my growing list of commitments. Between classes, the blog, and now workshops, my schedule was full. But I didn't mind. I was finally doing work that mattered. Patricia attended one of my workshops, sitting in the back and smiling proudly. Afterward, she hugged me tight. "You're amazing. You know that, right?" "I'm just doing what I wish someone had done for me," I said. "That's what makes it amazing." As winter turned to spring, my blog readership grew. I started receiving sponsorship offers from financial companies wanting to advertise on the site. At first, I was skeptical. But Jennifer helped me vet the offers, ensuring they were from legitimate companies that aligned with my values. The modest income from the blog and workshops wasn't life-changing, but it was empowering. I was earning money from work I cared about, work that helped people. It felt good in a way my marriage to Gerald never had. I also started volunteering at a women's shelter, teaching basic financial literacy to residents. Many of them had fled abusive situations with no access to money or credit cards or identification. I helped them understand how to rebuild their financial lives, how to establish credit, how to protect themselves from future abuse. One woman, barely 20 years old, told me I'd given her hope. "I thought I'd be stuck forever," she said. "But you showed me there's a way out." Those moments made everything worth it. Every difficult court appearance, every painful memory relived in blog posts, every uncomfortable interview. If my story helped women escape bad situations or avoid them altogether, then what I'd gone through had meaning. Dr. Foster called me into her office in March with news. "You've been nominated for the university's Outstanding Student Award. It's given to one graduating student who demonstrates exceptional academic achievement and community impact." I was stunned. "Really? Really? Your blog, your workshops, your volunteer work, combined with your academic performance? You're exactly the kind of student we want to recognize." The award comes with a $5,000 scholarship that can be applied to graduate studies. "I don't know what to say," I managed. "Say you'll accept the nomination," Dr. Foster smiled. "And keep doing what you're doing. You're making a real difference, Naomi." That evening, I sat in my apartment and looked back over the past year. 12 months ago, I'd been reeling from Gerald's betrayal, drowning in legal battles, unsure if I'd survive. Now I was graduating with honors, running a successful blog, teaching workshops, and helping women across the country recognize and escape financial abuse. I'd found my voice, and I was using it to speak truth, offer hope, and create change. Gerald sent one more letter. I almost threw it away unread, but curiosity got the better of me. Inside was a single sentence: "I'm proud of what you've become." I tore the letter into pieces. Gerald didn't get to be proud of me. He didn't get to take any credit for my success. I'd become who I was despite him, not because of him. His opinion no longer mattered. As April arrived and graduation loomed, I received acceptance letters from 2 of the 3 MBA programs I'd applied to. Both offered partial scholarships. Both wanted me to start in the fall. I was on my way. The future was bright, full of possibilities I'd never imagined during those dark days when Gerald's lies first came to light. I'd found my voice, my purpose, my strength, and I was just getting started. The graduation ceremony took place on a warm May morning. I sat among hundreds of other students in caps and gowns, listening to speeches about potential and futures and dreams. When they called my name, I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, and the applause from the small section where Rochelle, Patricia, and Dr. Foster sat felt like the sweetest music I'd ever heard. Afterward, we took photos on the lawn. Me in my green cap and gown, diploma in hand, smiling wider than I had in years. This was mine. I'd earned it. Gerald had tried to convince me I didn't need education, didn't need independence. But here I was, degree in hand, ready for whatever came next. "I'm so proud of you," Rochelle said, wiping tears from her eyes. "You've come so far." "We've come so far," I corrected, hugging her. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Patricia handed me a small wrapped box. "For you. To celebrate." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, simple and elegant. Nothing like the ostentatious piece Gerald had given me that started this whole nightmare. This one was beautiful because it represented friendship, support, and genuine love. "Thank you," I said, my voice thick with emotion. It's perfect. Dr. Foster approached with congratulations and one more surprise. The Outstanding Student Award Committee made their decision. You won, Naomi. Congratulations. The award ceremony was that evening. I stood on stage again, this time to accept recognition for my academic achievements and community impact. As I gave my acceptance speech, I looked out at the audience and saw faces I recognized from my workshops, women I'd helped through the blog, people whose lives had intersected with mine over the past year. A year and a half ago, I thought my life was over. I'd discovered betrayals I never imagined possible. I'd lost the person I thought I'd spend my life with, but what I gained was so much more valuable. I gained myself. I gained purpose. I gained the courage to use my pain to help others. I spoke about the importance of financial literacy, the prevalence of financial abuse, and the need for education and resources. I thanked everyone who'd supported me, especially Rochelle and Patricia. And I ended with a challenge. Don't wait for crisis to find your purpose. Don't wait for betrayal to discover your strength. Start now. Learn now. Build your independence now. Because you never know when you'll need it, and it's never too early to invest in yourself. The applause was thunderous. Several people stood. I saw women wiping their eyes, and I knew my message had landed. After the ceremony, a woman approached me. She was professionally dressed, probably in her 50s, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. Naomi Chambers? I'm Director Helen Bright from the Community Support Network. We're a nonprofit focused on helping survivors of domestic abuse, including financial abuse. I've been following your blog, and I attended your workshop last month. I'd like to offer you a position with our organization. I blinked, surprised. A position? Yes. We're creating a new financial advocacy program. We need someone to develop curriculum, train staff, and work directly with clients. Your combination of education, experience, and passion makes you perfect for the role. The salary is competitive and it comes with benefits. Are you interested? Was I interested? It was exactly the kind of opportunity I'd been hoping for, the chance to turn my advocacy work into a career. I'm starting an MBA program in the fall, I said carefully. I'd need a schedule that accommodates classes. We can work with that, Helen said immediately. Many of our staff pursue advanced degrees. We believe in investing in our people. Think about it and let me know. She handed me her card and walked away, leaving me stunned. Rochelle grabbed my arm. Did that just happen? Did you just get offered a real job doing exactly what you want to do? I think so, I said, still processing. This is incredible, Naomi. Everything's coming together. She was right. Everything was coming together in ways I never could have planned or predicted. I spent the next week researching the Community Support Network. They had an excellent reputation, a strong track record of helping domestic abuse survivors, and a mission that aligned perfectly with my values. The financial advocacy program they wanted to create would fill a genuine need in the community. I called Helen Bright and accepted the position. We agreed on a schedule that would allow me to attend evening MBA classes while working 4 days a week at the organization. The salary was more than enough to support myself comfortably, and the work was meaningful. My first day at the Community Support Network was both exciting and nerve-wracking. Helen gave me a tour of the facility, introducing me to counselors, case managers, and support staff. Everyone was welcoming, enthusiastic about the new financial advocacy program. We see so many clients who escape physical abuse only to find themselves trapped by financial abuse, one counselor explained. They have no access to money, no credit history, no understanding of how to manage finances independently. What you're going to build here will change lives. I was assigned a small office with a window overlooking a garden. My title was Financial Advocacy Coordinator, and my first task was to develop a comprehensive curriculum for clients at various stages of recovery. I threw myself into the work. I researched best practices, consulted with financial advisors and attorneys, and drew from my own experience. The curriculum I developed covered everything from basic budgeting to long-term financial planning, from recognizing abuse to protecting yourself legally. Within a month, we launched the pilot program. 5 clients signed up for the first workshop series. I was nervous, worried that my approach might not resonate or that I'd fail to help them effectively. But the women who attended were hungry for the information I provided. They asked questions, shared their experiences, and supported each other through the learning process. By the end of the 6-week series, all 5 had opened their own bank accounts, created budgets, and developed financial safety plans. You gave me tools I never had, one woman told me on the last day. My ex-husband controlled everything. I didn't even know how much money we had. Now I understand how to protect myself. Thank you. Helen was thrilled with the program's success. We need to expand this. Can you handle more workshops? I could, and I did. By August, I was running 3 separate workshop series, training other staff members on financial advocacy, and developing specialized programs for different populations. Young mothers, elderly women, immigrants. The work was challenging but deeply rewarding. Every client who learned to read a credit report, every woman who opened her first independent bank account, every person who created a financial safety plan felt like a victory. My blog continued to grow as well. I documented the work I was doing at the Community Support Network, sharing insights and resources. The community that had formed around the blog became more active, with regular readers offering support and advice to newcomers. A publisher reached out in September. They'd been following my blog and wanted to know if I'd be interested in writing a book. A comprehensive guide to recognizing, escaping, and recovering from financial abuse. We think there's a real market for this, the editor said over the phone. Your voice is authentic, your advice is practical, and your story is compelling. Would you be interested? Would I be interested in writing a book? A year ago, the idea would have seemed impossible. Now it felt like the natural next step. Yes, I said. I'm interested. The MBA program started in late August. I juggled work, school, and writing, somehow managing to keep all the balls in the air. It was exhausting, but it was also exhilarating. I was building a life I'd never imagined, one filled with purpose and impact. Patricia and I still met weekly for coffee. She was thriving at the gallery, curating exhibitions and mentoring young artists. We'd both rebuilt our lives from the wreckage Gerald had left behind, and we were both stronger for it. Do you ever think about him? She asked one afternoon. Sometimes, I admitted. Not often and never for long. He's part of my past, but he doesn't define my present. I feel the same way, Patricia said. He's my brother, but I don't know him anymore. The person who did those things, who hurt so many people, that's not the brother I grew up with. Or maybe it is, and I just never saw it clearly. We saw what we wanted to see, I said gently. That's not our fault. The court notified me in October that Gerald was up for parole review. As the victim in his case, I had the right to submit a statement. I spent a week crafting it carefully, explaining the impact of his crimes not just on me but on Patricia, on the other people caught up in his smuggling ring, on everyone he'd deceived. I didn't attend the hearing. I didn't need to see him again. But my written statement was considered, and the parole board denied his early release. He'd serve his full sentence. Justice in its own slow way had prevailed. In November, the Community Support Network hosted a fundraising gala. I was asked to speak about the financial advocacy program and its impact. I wore a bright blue dress and stood before a room full of donors and supporters, telling stories of transformation and resilience. Financial abuse is invisible, I said. There are no bruises, no scars that show on the surface. But the damage is profound. It traps people in relationships they can't afford to leave. It strips them of autonomy and dignity. And it's far more common than most people realize. I spoke about the women I'd worked with, their courage and determination. I spoke about the importance of education and resources. And I spoke about hope, about the possibility of rebuilding after devastation. The gala raised over $200,000 for the organization. Helen told me later that several major donors had specifically mentioned my speech as their motivation for giving. You're becoming the face of this issue, she said. People trust you because you've been there. You're not speaking from theory or research. You're speaking from experience. As the year drew to a close, I reflected on how far I'd come. I had a career I loved, work that mattered, and a future that excited me. I'd turned my pain into purpose, my betrayal into advocacy. I'd found my voice and used it to help others find theirs. Gerald had tried to destroy me. Instead, he'd freed me to become someone I never could have been while married to him. And that was the greatest victory of all. Winter returned, bringing with it the anniversary of the night Gerald had given me the bracelet. I noted the date with quiet acknowledgement but no grief. That night had been the beginning of my liberation, even though I hadn't known it at the time. The divorce settlement funds were finally fully transferred. I sat with a financial advisor, someone Jennifer had recommended, and created a comprehensive financial plan. Part of the money went into retirement accounts, part into an emergency fund, part into investments that would grow over time. But I also allowed myself one significant indulgence, a down payment on a house. The house I found was nothing like the one I'd shared with Gerald. That house had been his choice in a neighborhood he'd selected, decorated to his taste. This house was a modest two-bedroom bungalow in a quiet neighborhood near the university. It had a small yard, hardwood floors, and big windows that let in natural light. It was perfect. It was mine. Patricia helped me move in on a Saturday in January. We spent the day unpacking boxes, hanging curtains, and arranging furniture. Rochelle came by with pizza for dinner, and the three of us sat on the floor of my empty living room eating and laughing. To new beginnings, Patricia said, raising her water bottle and a toast. To fresh starts, Rochelle added. To home, I said, looking around at the space that was truly, completely mine. The next few months were consumed with settling into the house, continuing my work at the Community Support Network, keeping up with my MBA classes, and working on the book proposal my publisher had requested. Every day was busy, but it was a good kind of busy. Purposeful. Fulfilling. The financial advocacy program continued to expand. Helen secured a grant that allowed us to hire 2 additional staff members to support the work. I trained them personally, sharing everything I'd learned and developed over the past year. You're building something that will outlast you, Helen said during one staff meeting. This program will help people for decades to come. That's legacy work, Naomi. Legacy work. The phrase stuck with me. I was creating something bigger than myself, something that would continue helping people long after I moved on to other things. My blog hit 100,000 monthly readers in March. The milestone felt surreal. What had started as a personal story shared on a simple website had grown into a resource visited by people across the country, even internationally. The comments section was now a thriving community where women supported each other, shared resources, and celebrated victories both large and small. A television producer reached out, wanting to feature my story on a news magazine program. I was hesitant at first, not sure I wanted that level of exposure. But Rochelle convinced me. Think about how many more people you could reach, she said. TV has a much wider audience than your blog. If even a fraction of viewers are helped by your story, isn't that worth the discomfort of being on camera? She was right. I agreed to the interview, and the producer sent a crew to film at my house and at the Community Support Network. The segment aired on a Sunday evening in April, a 12-minute feature that condensed my story into its most compelling elements. The response was immediate and overwhelming. My blog crashed from the traffic spike. My email inbox filled with thousands of messages. The Community Support Network's phones rang off the hook with people seeking help or wanting to donate. Helen called me into her office the day after the segment aired. We've received over $50,000 in donations since last night. People across the country want to replicate your financial advocacy program in their communities. Naomi, you've started a movement. A movement. The word felt too big, too important for what I'd done. But maybe Helen was right. Maybe sharing my story, teaching these workshops, building these resources had created ripples that were spreading far beyond what I could see. The publisher accelerated the timeline for my book. They wanted to capitalize on the momentum from the television appearance. I spent every free moment writing, revising, polishing. The book became my master's thesis project for my MBA program, a comprehensive business plan for starting and running financial advocacy programs. Patricia got engaged in May. She'd been dating someone from the gallery, a kind man who respected her and supported her career. I was thrilled for her, grateful that she'd found happiness after everything we'd been through. You're next, she teased at the engagement party. I'm not looking, I said honestly. I'm happy with my life as it is. And I had friends, work that mattered, financial security, and a future full of possibilities. Romance wasn't something I needed to feel complete. But life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. The Community Support Network partnered with the local school district to provide financial literacy workshops for high school students. I volunteered to teach one of the sessions, figuring teenagers needed these skills as much as adults. The teacher coordinating the program was a man named Trevor Watson. He taught social studies and had been advocating for financial literacy education in schools for years. When we met to plan the curriculum, I was immediately struck by his genuine passion for helping students. Trevor was tall, with an easy smile and kind eyes. He was a single father raising a 10-year-old daughter, balancing teaching with parenting with the same kind of determined organization I recognized in myself. We worked well together, developing a curriculum that engaged teenagers without talking down to them. The workshops were a huge success, with students asking thoughtful questions and several requesting additional resources. After the final workshop, Trevor invited me for coffee. To celebrate a successful program, he said, and to thank you for your expertise. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into a long conversation about teaching, parenting, life goals, and recovery from difficult pasts. Trevor had been divorced for 3 years, and while his situation was different from mine, he understood the challenge of rebuilding after a relationship ends. "I'm not looking for anything serious," I said as we left the restaurant. "I hope that's okay." "That's more than okay," Trevor said with a smile. "I'm not either. But I enjoyed talking with you tonight. Can we do it again sometime?" We could, and we did. Trevor and I became friends, meeting occasionally for coffee or dinner, always keeping things casual and comfortable. There was no pressure, no expectations. Just two people who enjoyed each other's company and understood each other's need for independence. Rochelle noticed the change in me. "You're lighter," she observed one evening. "Happier." "I am happy," I said. "I have good work, good friends, a home I love. What more could I want?" "Nothing," Rochelle said. "That's my point. You've built a life that fulfills you. Gerald couldn't take that away even if he tried." The book was published in September, just over 2 years since the night Gerald gave me the bracelet. The cover was simple and powerful, a broken bracelet with the title Breaking Free, a guide to financial independence after abuse. The launch party was held at a local bookstore. Patricia, Rochelle, Dr. Foster, Helen, Jennifer Wu, and dozens of other people who'd supported me over the past 2 years attended. Trevor came too, standing in the back and smiling proudly. I read an excerpt from the introduction, my voice steady as I shared words I'd written from the deepest part of my experience. Financial abuse thrives in silence and ignorance. By learning, speaking up, and supporting each other, we break the chains that bind us. This book is for every person who's ever felt trapped by money, controlled by a partner, or lost in a financial maze they didn't create. You can find your way out. I did, and so can you. The applause was warm and genuine. People lined up to buy copies, to share their stories, to thank me for writing what they'd needed to read. One woman, probably in her 60s, waited until everyone else had left. She approached me with tears in her eyes. "My daughter is in a situation like you were in," she said quietly. "Her husband controls everything. She has no access to money, no independence. I didn't know how to help her. But now I do. I'm giving her your book. Thank you for showing us the way out." I hugged her, feeling the weight of responsibility and the lightness of hope in equal measure. This was why I'd written the book. For women like her daughter. For anyone who needed a roadmap out of darkness. The book sold well, making several bestseller lists for nonfiction. The royalties were modest but steady, another stream of income from work that mattered. But more important than sales figures were the messages I received from readers whose lives had been changed by the information and encouragement they found in its pages. One woman wrote, "I used your book as evidence in my divorce proceedings. The judge read the chapter on hidden assets and ordered a full forensic audit. We found $800,000 my husband had hidden. Your book saved my financial future." Another, "I'm a counselor at a domestic violence shelter. Your book is now required reading for all our staff. The tools you provide are helping us serve our clients better. Thank you." And another, "I'm 24 years old and just got engaged. Reading your book made me realize I need to protect myself financially even in a happy relationship. I'm opening my own accounts and keeping my credit separate. You've taught me to be smart, not just hopeful." Every message reinforced that I'd made the right choice in sharing my story, in being vulnerable and honest about what I'd been through. By December, my house felt like a true home. I decorated it carefully, choosing pieces that reflected my taste rather than trying to impress anyone else. The spare bedroom became a combination office and library, shelves lined with books on business, finance, and personal growth. Patricia's wedding was scheduled for spring. She asked me to be her maid of honor, and I accepted gratefully. Our friendship had been forged in crisis, but it had evolved into something deeper and more enduring. Trevor and his daughter came over for dinner one evening. We made pasta together, laughing as we competed to see who could make the best garlic bread. His daughter was bright and funny, already showing signs of the strong person she'd become. After she went to play in the yard, Trevor and I sat on my porch with coffee. "You've built something really special here," he said, gesturing at my house, my life. "I admire how you've turned pain into purpose." "I had good people helping me," I said. "And I got lucky with opportunities." "It wasn't luck," Trevor said seriously. "It was determination and courage. Give yourself credit, Naomi." I smiled, accepting the compliment. He was right. I had worked hard, fought fiercely, and refused to let Gerald's betrayal define my future. I deserved to acknowledge that. As another year drew to a close, I reflected on everything that had changed. 2 years ago, I'd been wearing a stolen bracelet, married to a criminal, trapped in a web of lies. Now I was financially independent, professionally successful, and personally fulfilled. I'd rebuilt my life from the ground up, and it was better than anything I'd lost. Gerald was still in prison. Simone was too. They'd both made their choices and they were living with the consequences. I'd made my choices too. And I was living with the rewards. Freedom, purpose, joy, and hope. Everything I'd fought for, everything I'd earned. Mine, completely and absolutely. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and new possibilities. Patricia's wedding was scheduled for late April, and the preparations consumed most of her free time. I helped where I could, attending dress fittings and taste-testing cake flavors, grateful to be part of something joyful and hopeful. "I can't believe this is happening," Patricia said during one planning session. 2 years ago, I was being arrested for a crime I didn't commit. Now I'm getting married to a wonderful man, working a job I love, and rebuilding my relationship with my family. "You deserve all of it," I said sincerely. "You've earned every bit of happiness coming your way." The wedding was beautiful. Patricia wore a stunning maroon dress, her smile radiant as she married the man who'd supported her through her recovery. I stood beside her as maid of honor, thinking about how far we'd both come from that terrible morning when she'd been arrested wearing a stolen bracelet. During the reception, I found myself sitting at a table with Trevor. He'd been invited as my plus one, though we'd been careful to maintain that we were just friends. His daughter was spending the weekend with her mother, so he was relaxed and present in a way I hadn't seen before. "You look happy," he observed, watching me smile at Patricia and her new husband on the dance floor. "I am happy," I said. "For Patricia, for myself, for all of us. We've all survived our storms and found calmer waters." "To calmer waters," Trevor said, raising his glass. We clinked glasses and drank, and in that moment something shifted between us. Not dramatically, not obviously. Just a subtle recognition that what we had, whatever we wanted to call it, was worth acknowledging. Later that evening, as we left the reception, Trevor walked me to my car. "I've been thinking," he said carefully, "about us. About what we're doing." "What are we doing?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I think we're building a friendship that could become more if we let it. But I also think neither of us is in a hurry, and that's okay. I like where we are. I like spending time with you. I like that there's no pressure or expectations." "I like that too," I admitted. "I'm not ready for a serious relationship. I might never be. But I value what we have." "Then let's keep doing this," Trevor said. "Friends who care about each other, who support each other, who enjoy spending time together. No labels, no timelines. Just this." I smiled. "Just this sounds perfect." We hugged goodbye and I drove home feeling content. Trevor understood what I needed and he wasn't trying to push for more. That kind of respect and patience was rare, and I appreciated it more than I could express. The Community Support Network's financial advocacy program continued to grow. We trained advocates in 5 other cities who were replicating the program in their communities. Helen was in talks with a national foundation about funding to expand even further. "You've created something that's changing the landscape of domestic violence support," Helen told me during a staff meeting. "Financial advocacy is becoming recognized as essential, not supplementary. That's because of the work you've done here." The recognition felt good, but what mattered more was the impact. Every week, I met with women who were learning to rebuild their financial lives. I saw their confidence grow as they understood budgets, credit scores, and financial planning. I watched them move from dependency to independence, from fear to empowerment. One client, a young woman named Keisha, no wait, I should call her something else, a young woman named Tasha, particularly touched me. She'd fled an abusive marriage with her 2 children, arriving at the shelter with nothing but the clothes they wore. Over the course of 3 months, I helped her open a bank account, create a budget, apply for assistance programs, and develop a plan for long-term financial stability. When she graduated from the program, she hugged me tightly. "You gave me hope," she said. "I thought I'd never be able to support my kids on my own. Now I know I can. Thank you." Those moments made everything worthwhile. Every difficult memory relived, every painful detail shared, every hour spent building the program was justified by moments like that. My MBA program was nearing completion. I'd be graduating in May with honors, my thesis on financial advocacy programs receiving praise from faculty. Dr. Foster had already offered to write recommendation letters for whatever I wanted to do next. "Have you thought about a doctorate?" she asked one afternoon. "You could teach, do research, influence policy at a systemic level." The suggestion intrigued me. I loved the direct work with clients, but the idea of influencing broader systems, of creating change at a policy level, appealed to my strategic mind. Maybe, I said. After I finish this degree and see what doors open. A door opened sooner than I expected. The state legislature announced hearings on a bill that would require financial literacy education in all public high schools. Several advocacy groups were invited to testify, and the Community Support Network was asked to provide expertise. Helen looked at me. Would you be willing to testify? Share your story and explain why this education is crucial? I'd never testified before a legislative committee, never spoken to policymakers. But this was too important to let fear stop me. Yes, I said. I'll do it. The hearing took place on a Tuesday morning in the state capitol. I dressed professionally in a green suit, my written testimony prepared and reviewed multiple times. Trevor came for support, sitting in the gallery as I took my place at the witness table. Committee members, I began, my voice steady despite the nerves. My name is Naomi Chambers, and I'm here to tell you why financial literacy education saved my life. I shared an abbreviated version of my story, the hidden accounts, the smuggling ring, the discovery and recovery. I explained how lack of financial knowledge had left me vulnerable, and how education had empowered me to escape and rebuild. Financial abuse affects millions of people, I continued. It's a tool of control used by abusive partners to trap victims in relationships they can't afford to leave. But it's also something we can prevent through education. If every student learned basic financial skills, budgeting, credit management, how to recognize financial abuse, we could break the cycle. I spoke for 15 minutes, answering questions from committee members who seemed genuinely interested in understanding the issue. When I finished, several members thanked me for my testimony. Your story is compelling, one senator said. And your point about prevention through education is well taken. Thank you for your courage in sharing this. The bill passed committee and eventually became law. Starting the following school year, all high schools in the state would be required to include financial literacy in their curriculum. It was a small victory, but it felt significant. Trevor hugged me after the hearing. You were amazing. You just helped change policy that will affect thousands of students. We just helped, I corrected, including him. The workshops we developed together contributed to this. He smiled. Then we make a good team. We did make a good team. Over the following months, Trevor and I continued our easy friendship, meeting for dinner or coffee, taking his daughter to museums and parks, enjoying each other's company without complication or drama. Rochelle teased me gently about it. You know you're basically dating him, right? We're friends, I insisted. Friends who have dinner twice a week, who text every day, who spend holidays together. That's dating, Naomi. Maybe it was. But it didn't feel like the relationships I'd had before. With Gerald, everything had been performative, calculated. With Trevor, everything was natural, comfortable. We fit together without trying to force it. My second book was contracted in early summer. This one would focus specifically on teaching financial literacy to teenagers and young adults, incorporating the curriculum Trevor and I had developed for the school workshops. The publisher was enthusiastic about the project, seeing it as a natural follow-up to my first book. Patricia and her husband bought a house near mine. We became neighbors in more than just geography, spending evenings on each other's porches, sharing meals and conversation. She was happy in a way I'd never seen before, settled and content. Do you ever think about dating seriously? She asked one evening. Trevor seems nice. He is nice, I said. But I'm not looking for what I had with Gerald. I don't want to be someone's wife again. I like being independent. You can be independent and in a relationship, Patricia pointed out. They're not mutually exclusive. She was right, of course. But I wasn't ready to think about that yet. Maybe I never would be, and that was okay. As summer turned to fall, the Community Support Network celebrated its 5th anniversary. At the gala celebrating the milestone, Helen announced my promotion to Director of Financial Advocacy Programs. My role would expand to include overseeing the national expansion, training advocates across the country, and developing new initiatives. You've built something extraordinary, Helen said in her announcement. And now we want you to help us take it even further. I accepted the promotion with gratitude and excitement. This was work that mattered, work that would reach more people than I'd ever imagined possible. At the gala after-party, Trevor found me on the balcony overlooking the city. Congratulations, Director Chambers. I laughed. That sounds so formal. You've earned it, he said seriously. Everything you've built, everything you've accomplished, it's incredible. Thank you, I said, meaning it. For supporting me, for believing in the work, for being a friend when I needed one. That's what friends do, Trevor said. Then after a pause, although I'd like to be more than friends. When you're ready. If you're ever ready. No pressure. I looked at him, at this kind, patient man who'd given me space and time and understanding. Who'd become important to me without demanding anything in return. I might be ready, I said slowly. Eventually. But I can't promise anything. I'm not asking for promises, Trevor said. I'm just letting you know I'm here. Whenever, if ever, you want something more. We stood together in comfortable silence, looking out at the city lights. I didn't know what the future held for Trevor and me, if there even was a future beyond friendship. But I knew that whatever happened, it would be on my terms in my time. I'd rebuilt my life exactly the way I wanted it. If I chose to share it with someone, it would be because I wanted to, not because I needed to. And that freedom was worth more than any bracelet, any marriage, any promise of security that came with strings attached. I was whole on my own. Everything else was just extra. 1 year later, I stood in the ballroom of a downtown hotel, watching people mingle at the annual Community Support Network Gala. This year's event was special. The organization was celebrating the success of the financial advocacy program and announcing the launch of a national initiative to bring similar programs to every state. I wore a red dress, my hair styled elegantly, feeling confident and comfortable in my own skin. The past 3 years had transformed me in ways I could never have imagined. That night Gerald gave me the bracelet. Patricia appeared at my side, pregnant with her first child. This is incredible, Naomi. Look at everything you've built. We've built, I corrected, gesturing to include everyone in the room. This isn't just me. It's Helen, the staff, the clients who bravely shared their stories, people like you who supported the work. But it started with you, Patricia insisted. With your courage to speak up. Helen took the stage to give the opening remarks, thanking donors and supporters. Then she called me up to speak about the program's impact and future direction. I walked to the podium with steady steps, looking out at a room full of people who believed in this work. I saw Rochelle in the front row, smiling proudly. I saw Trevor with his daughter, both of them giving me encouraging nods. I saw Jennifer Wu, Dr. Foster, Dr. Okafor, and dozens of others who'd helped me along this journey. 3 years ago, I received a gift that changed my life. It wasn't the gift my husband intended to give me. He thought he was giving me an expensive bracelet to cover up his crimes. Instead, he gave me the catalyst for discovering truth, finding strength, and building purpose. I shared the story again, though many in the audience had heard it before. But I told it differently now, not as a victim recounting trauma but as a survivor celebrating transformation. Financial abuse is real, common, and devastating. But it's also preventable and escapable. Over the past 3 years, our programs have helped over 2,000 women gain financial independence. We've trained advocates in 23 states. We've influenced policy in 4 states. And we're just getting started. I outlined the new national initiative, partnerships with domestic violence organizations across the country, federal funding to support expansion, a comprehensive training program for advocates, and a public awareness campaign to help people recognize financial abuse. This work matters because every person deserves financial autonomy. Every person deserves to control their own money, make their own decisions, and build their own future. That's what we're fighting for, and we won't stop until every person has access to the resources they need. The applause was enthusiastic. Several people stood, and I felt the familiar swell of purpose that this work always brought me. After my speech, I mingled with donors and supporters, answering questions and accepting congratulations. A young woman approached me nervously. Mrs. Chambers? I read your book last year. It helped me leave an abusive relationship. I wanted to thank you in person. I hugged her, feeling the impact of the work in a tangible way. How are you doing now? I'm good, she said, smiling. I have my own apartment, a stable job, and I'm finishing my degree. I'm building the life I want. That's wonderful, I said sincerely. You did that. You had the courage to leave and rebuild. I just provided some tools. But I needed those tools, she insisted. Thank you for sharing your story so people like me could find our way out. These conversations happened throughout the evening. Person after person sharing how the book, the blog, the workshops had helped them. Each story reinforced that sharing my painful experience had been the right choice. Trevor found me later in the evening on the terrace. You looked beautiful up there. Confident, powerful, exactly where you're supposed to be. Over the past year, our relationship had evolved slowly and naturally. We were officially dating now, though we maintained our independence in our own spaces. It was different from my marriage to Gerald in every way, equal, respectful, supportive without being controlling. Thank you for being here, I said, leaning against him. Where else would I be? He asked. I'm proud of you, Naomi. Of everything you've accomplished. His daughter joined us, chattering about the fancy desserts inside. She'd become comfortable with me over the past year, and I'd become comfortable with the idea of being part of her life without trying to replace her mother. We were building something good together, the three of us. Slowly, carefully, with respect for everyone's needs and boundaries. Later that night, alone in my house, I pulled out a box I'd kept in my closet. Inside were mementos from the past 3 years. The first blog post I'd printed out, photos from my graduation, the letter from the publisher accepting my book proposal, news clippings about the legislative testimony, thank you notes from clients. I also had one other item, a small piece of the note that had come with the anonymous burner phone. You're doing great. Keep going. I'd never learned who sent me those initial warnings, who had tried to save me from Gerald's trap. Simone had claimed it was her, but I suspected there might have been others involved, people in Gerald's organization who'd grown a conscience or simply wanted to see him fall. It didn't matter anymore. Whoever they were, they'd helped set me on this path. They'd given me the push I needed to act, to investigate, to escape. I was grateful even if I'd never get to say thank you in person. My phone buzzed with a text from Rochelle. I'm so proud of you. You've changed so many lives. Love you. I smiled, typing back, love you too. Thank you for everything. Rochelle had been my rock through all of this. Without her support, her practical advice, her unwavering belief in me, I might not have made it through. The next morning, I received an email from the publisher of my second book. It had been released 3 months ago and was already selling well. They wanted to discuss a third book, this one focused on financial advocacy as a career path. There's growing interest in this field, the editor wrote. We think you're the perfect person to write a comprehensive guide for people who want to do this work professionally. I considered the offer. Another book would mean more writing, more deadlines, more work on top of my already busy schedule. But it would also mean reaching more people, training more advocates, spreading this work even further. I replied with a tentative yes, pending details on timeline and expectations. Patricia called that afternoon. I have news. The gallery is opening a second location and they want me to manage it. It's a huge promotion, more responsibility, more money. That's wonderful, I said, genuinely excited for her. You've worked so hard. You deserve this. We both do, she said. We've both built lives we're proud of. Lives Gerald tried to destroy but couldn't. She was right. Gerald was still in prison, his parole repeatedly denied. He'd be eligible again in 2 years, but based on his behavior inside, release seemed unlikely. He'd become bitter and angry, blaming everyone but himself for his situation. I didn't think about him often anymore. He was a chapter in my past, an important one that had shaped me, but not one that defined my present or future. Simone had been released on parole 6 months ago. I'd heard through the legal grapevine that she was working at a nonprofit, trying to rebuild her life quietly. I held no ill will toward her. She'd made terrible choices and paid the consequences. Now she was trying to move forward just like I had. That was enough. As Thanksgiving approached, I hosted dinner at my house for the first time. Patricia and her husband came, along with Rochelle, Trevor and his daughter, and a few colleagues from work. My small dining room was crowded, but it was full of laughter and conversation and genuine connection. Looking around the table at these people I loved, people who'd supported me and celebrated with me, I felt overwhelming gratitude. Not for what I'd been through, but for what I'd become because of it. I want to say something, I announced, standing with my glass of sparkling cider. 3 years ago my life fell apart. I discovered betrayals I never imagined, lost a marriage I thought was solid, and found myself starting over from scratch. It was the worst experience of my life. I paused, looking at each person. But it was also the best thing that ever happened to me. Because it forced me to find strength I didn't know I had. It pushed me to discover purpose I'd never considered. It brought me to all of you, to this work, to this life I've built. I raised my glass. So I'm grateful. Not for the betrayal, but for the opportunity it created. For the chance to become who I was always meant to be. Thank you all for being part of this journey. To Naomi, Rochelle said, raising her glass. To new beginnings, Patricia added. To courage, Trevor said, his eyes meeting mine. We clinked glasses and drank, and I felt the truth of the moment settle into my bones. I'd survived. I'd thrived. I'd built a life of meaning and purpose and joy. Gerald had given me a stolen bracelet, trying to use me as cover for his crimes. Instead, he'd given me freedom. Freedom from lies, from control, from a life that was never truly mine. That bracelet, That terrible, beautiful catalyst had been my liberation disguised as imprisonment. And I would be forever grateful that I'd had the courage to throw it away. Later that evening, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea. The neighborhood was peaceful, lights glowing in windows, the sound of distant laughter carrying on the cool air. I thought about the future, the books I'd write, the programs I'd develop, the lives I'd touch. I thought about Trevor and the possibility of building something lasting with him, but only if it felt right, only if it enhanced rather than diminished my independence. I thought about the woman I'd become, strong, purposeful, free. No longer defined by someone else's choices or betrayals. No longer trapped by fear or ignorance. I was Naomi Chambers, financial advocacy director, author, speaker, survivor, thriver, and I was exactly who I was meant to be. The bracelet was long gone, evidence in a federal case, eventually destroyed after the trials concluded. But its impact remained, not as trauma but as transformation. Gerald had tried to trap me with jewelry and lies. Instead he'd set me free. And I had used that freedom to build something beautiful.